Monday night. It's the, let me look at my computer, it's the 5th of February 2018. And I'm your host, as usual, Jason Holmes. We've got a cracking show. We've got a cracking couple of shows lined up for you over the next 2 days, today and tomorrow. So I'll give you the details of tomorrow night's a little bit later on, but tonight we've got some good stuff lined up. I'm just hoping that all the levels are okay and everybody is doing okay. I'm just checking. We're also broadcasting on Facebook Live as well. So if you go onto my Facebook profile, I'm Jason Holmes. It's facebook.com/Holmes2. You can see me and you'll be able to listen in and hear at the same quality as you can on Spreaker. And we had a huge result last week, and we had thousands and thousands of views on the show on the Facebook Live feed. So hopefully that will be building up. Going to be building up too. Anyway, tonight, let's get down to tonight. Let's get down to brass tacks. You don't want to be listening to me. I'm just going to turn our... First of all, when you've got a guest on such as we've got on tonight, I always need a bit of backup. And who better to give me a bit of backup than Paul Webster, who joins me co-hosting tonight, guest co-host. Good evening. That means you're going to get paid. Paul. So good evening, Paul. How are you doing, mate?
I'm great, mate. Oh, I didn't know that, but I feel very honoured now. But, looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, how are you anyway? Just give us a quick rundown on how you've been, just generally, because I'm sure we'll get into all the other stuff throughout the show, especially with the guest that we've got on tonight. So how are you generally in your health, work, fitness, that sort of thing?
Best than I've ever been for a long time, actually. As we spoke a few weeks back on the show, the sabbatical that I say sabbatical, I was still involved in stuff, but it's done me a lot of good. I needed it to recharge some batteries, and things of this week in particular, I didn't really have anything booked in for me at all this week. I mean, it was only last week that you asked me to do this, and then from over the weekend, I'm booked every night. I'm doing something every night this week, so it's interesting, people wanting to know things at last. And you know, rather than keep sitting around, I did post something last night about, funnily enough, it was about the bills of exchange. I know I don't want to talk about it much.
7 minutes. We had 7 minutes.
No, I've already beat you, mate. I already posted it when you advertised it.
It's only in the show, mate. It's only in the show that it's that counts.
Rubbish. So yeah, I was talking about this, and lots of people have made their own connections, because whatever it was that I put out, joined dots for people, because it's a concept what I put out rather than how to do it. There is no how to do with this stuff. You've got to go and learn it and then go and do it. Stop waiting for other people. I'm sick of people wanting proof and evidence. Go and do it yourself. So other than that, mate, everything's really taken off. And looking at the guest tonight, I've known this guy best part of 10 years now. We got in touch through the old Get Out of Debt Free site when things were just starting to bubble and you wanted to start looking for bits of new information and stuff. And Mark was ahead of the game then, and I'll introduce him now. It's Mark Ceylon, and this guy, he was ahead of the game back then. And he continues to keep looking at the weird and wonderful things that people don't want to look at. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you, Paul and Jason. Nice to see you.
And you, pal. Listen, I wondered if you wanted, because we're doing this on Facebook Live, people are looking at my ugly mug. I don't know whether you want me to move the position of the webcam, because I can see you from here, and just so that, because I'm having to use 3 different devices for this.
No, I'm fine the way I am, thanks. But if you haven't got a link, I'll post it up on my Facebook as well, so it might draw some more viewers.
Yeah, I did tag you in the broadcast. So if you go, I'm on facebook.com/Holmes2. So HOLMES and then the number 2. So if you find me there, yeah, you're on my list anyway. You're on my friends list, so but you've probably got about that many friends. There was about 1 billion Jasons.
There is a rather large amount of everyone, and the worst thing is that everyone assumes that you know them because they all talk to you like they know you, and then that's fine. I've got no problem with that. But they assume, not everyone, but most assume that you know them as well. And obviously the fact of the matter is you don't know many, and particularly for me, because I get contacted all the time, every day, from people I've never met before and people I've briefly spoken to people I know quite well. And it's been a heck of a roller coaster ride for me. I must admit I've enjoyed it. I'm looking forward in particular to this year and maybe next year, although I'm hoping it's all going to be sorted by this year because of the stuff that's going off at the moment even in the mainstream, which is something I never thought I'd say.
Did you have a question there, Paul? Did you want to say something?
No, it was part of the background. I was just muting something.
Oh, right, okay.
I was going to agree, though, that I felt, I mean, last year, as I've said before, I think Mark as well, that everybody who's been involved in doing anything and I shudder to use the term movement or whatever it is, whatever's going on, a lot of people who've been involved have been experiencing their own personal turbulence, if you like. You know, I've had to revisit stuff that I did 4 or 5 years ago, and it was very strange to go back to it because I've moved on and researched so much more, and I know it so much better. Yet when you go into the courts, you're still in exactly the same place. That's why with the cases I'm involved in, I've changed tack. I've decided I won't play them in that game anymore because I can't get any further with it. It's got to be, what they're basically doing is they're putting everybody into the burden of proof position. So they're basically going to stiff you, they're going to put you over, and then they're just going to go, and what? What are you going to do? And then it's left to us then. And as long as it's left to us and we don't do anything, then I think they'll sit on their hands.
I think you're right there. It's like we were chatting 5 minutes briefly before the show started. We were on about others now are talking about stuff that we were talking about 5, 10 or so years ago. They're just catching up to what we were talking about way back then. But we've gone way past that now and having to go back and revisit it. And like we were saying, sometimes you look at what you were saying then and you know, with the experience you've got now, you see that where you went wrong. But and many of the times you see you were spot on. It's like with the bills of exchange, all the answers are in there if they'd stick to the rules. But of course, they make them up as they go along.
Well, the factor is, Mark, as you know yourself, you go along to these courts. I put courts in speech marks, but you go along to these places of business negotiations. You're in a position to negotiate. You've got the legislation to back up what you're talking. You've got the remedy. You've got everything. And yet, the last time I was in court, the legal clerk refused to confirm whether she understood what the bills of exchange were, a negotiable instrument, how it was used. And I said, well, you've got to confirm this because the magistrates have just told me they don't have to understand it. So therefore, you are now going to advise these magistrates more than likely to issue, should I say, grant a forced entry warrant with no health and safety issue or breach brought up, only monetary, and you're going to let them grant a warrant which is going to be unlawful and even illegal because it's not a commercial property that you can just have jurisdiction over. I've got to have this consent. And you want to fit a pay-as-you-go meter, which is legally must be requested under the 2006 prepayment meter regulations. Straight away, you put all that in front of them, and they haven't got a clue what you're talking about. Not a clue, and they're put there to not have a clue on purpose, as you well know.
Yeah, well, I've been to court many times as well, and it's come down to the same thing. When they know you've got them beaten using their own statutes and acts, they just ignore them and just steamroller over you. Exactly.
And that's why there's absolutely no point at this moment in time anyway. There was no point me taking it any further right at this juncture. That doesn't mean to say we're not putting some stuff together right now, because we're looking to put some kind of a group action together, because this boat needs to be, there's holes all over this boat. It needs to be cut in half right now. You've got people who are acting in positions in these so-called courts that aren't courts. They are stealing money from people. There's no difference to me, you and Jason grouping together in my living room and then bringing somebody in off the street and stealing them, everything off them. That's the authority that these people have. There's no difference whatsoever. And the police, you know, I don't like upsetting anybody, but, and people have been upset when I've used the term that the police are idiots. Idiots is a legal term. I don't mean it derogatory that these people are stupid.
But they are.
You've got, yes, there's not much terminology you can use for these people, because you are showing them .UK legislation that they have no idea to understand, but they're going to enforce what they're there for without asking any questions. Now, we've done the order following thing, haven't we?
Yeah.
Doesn't really go to really good places from what I can work out from my memory. So, you know, is there an agenda that the police of today can only have an IQ up to a certain amount that they will refrain from critically thinking?
Well, we know that happens anyway, don't we? Because if they need people on a certain IQ, they'll just lower the requirements like they do. You know, it's like when they said that people, when they say that schools are improving, that the exam results are getting better, all they do is they lower the requirements, and it's all league tables. I mean, and Mark, you must have like opinions on all that shit that's going on in society at the moment.
Well, I could actually rant on it because it's that annoying. It's like at the moment friends have been speaking to me saying that their daughters or their sons are just coming through the mock GCSEs or whatever, or GCSEs or whatever they're called nowadays, and they're saying they've been told to expect poor results because they've changed the way they do things. Again, like what you were saying earlier, it's so that they don't get as good a result. But at the end of the day, jumping through these hoops to get these results for the government means that you're just a good slave. And thankfully, more and more parents are starting to ease off, because who was speaking to me was saying, don't worry about it. But the kid was still worrying about the fact that he was going to get a crappy result. And his mum had the right idea. Don't worry about it. It's not that important. And it's not in the big scheme of things. I remember being at school being taught fractions and crazy theorems, a way to solve mathematical problems. And I said, when am I ever going to use this in real life? And he didn't answer me. The teacher didn't answer me. And in actual fact, I never have. So a lot of schoolwork is just there to fill out your day with useless junk that you're never going to use, unfortunately. And I imagine it's even worse now than when we was at school.
And to get them to comply as well. I mean, schools are overrun with silly regulations. They promote bullying, and I know people probably think that that's a controversial view, but I think they promote bullying. I think all this bullying stuff that's everywhere. First of all, it says to the kid, "Oh my God!" It says to the kid that's perhaps a victim, "Oh my God, this is happening to me," and then that's another victim, and then the bullying starts going, and then you can put in more regulations that people can't say certain things and do certain things. And then on the other side, you've got the kids that think, "Oh, there's that, is there?" You know, the ones that would, you know, the rougher ones that we all knew them at school, didn't we? So they're getting in from both sides.
By design, absolutely by design there. And I must admit, I'm glad that my kids aren't at school anymore, because I don't think I'd be sending them now, because the way that it's got, I mean, we were fortunate we were going on holiday in 2008. So our youngest would have been at 11, and the missus went to the school to let her know that we were going away for 2 weeks. It was just before the summer holiday.
Right.
So, you know, because it's way cheaper. So she goes down, she filled the paperwork in, said we're going away for 2 weeks, and she hands the paperwork over to the whoever's waiting there, you know, the secretary. And she looked at it, and she looked at it and looked up at the missus and goes, "Oh, I don't think you'll be allowed to do this." And the missus turned around and says to her, "I'm not asking you what I'm going to do or not. I'm giving you the advance notice of what I'm going to be doing," and left. And that was just before they started to bring fines in, but they hadn't really jumped on the bandwagon. Because if you'll notice nowadays, everything, it's a fine for this. You leave your car running, it's a fine. You put up too close to the school, it's a fine. You're late getting to school, it's a fine. You're late picking your kids up, it's a fine. All about money, 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 and stealing it from us. And then that's the biggest controversy of the fact that the money is worthless. But we have been brainwashed to slavishly seek it like it was actually worth something. And that's got to be the biggest scam that there is.
And then we wrap it in a nice little bow, don't we? With not only fines for school children for this, that and the other, but then people who have none of this mythical money and the homeless and they're begging for some bits of cash, they're being fined. So they have no money. So the best thing to do is fine them for the money that they haven't got. So what do they do with them then? Well, the next bit is jail, isn't it?
Well, that's exactly what it is. I was just about to say that as you were talking there, because in America, the jail system is privatised and run for profit.
Yeah.
And of course, they can't make, in fact, I think over there, they actually have a deal with the prisons that if they don't keep the jails full, then the prisons can actually fine the government. So, hey, you're going to find these people to put in the jail.
95% guaranteed occupancy rate contracts they sign. So they're guaranteed to be 95% full. Yep. That's not aimed at rehabilitation. That is aimed at heads on beds.
Slaves.
That's all it's aimed at. And you've got that, and don't forget, in certain states, you can never have been in trouble with the police and you get caught with one spliff, and that's a 10-year mandatory.
Yeah.
And again, don't forget that a lot of the national work, even private companies, more so private companies these days, are all given to prisoners to work on. And I'm telling you now, I know that they get paid maybe £2.50 a week, maybe up to £5. You've got all the prisoners who've been fighting these, shall we say, accidental fires in California.
Yeah.
And when they come out, if and when they come out of jail, they can't get a job as a firefighter. Yeah. Yet they're doing it now for $1.50 an hour. It's, the world is being twisted and flipped upside down. Everything that you think is up is down. Everything is black is white, and vice versa. And people, if you've not got questions about this reality, you are not paying attention. You can't be.
Unfortunately, the system is designed perfectly, and it's working exactly as it was designed to work, to keep us all in slavery, to keep us all dumbed down, and to keep us chasing that pound. To put some food on the table, or turn the heating on, for instance. I mean, there's no heating in this room, for instance, but I've got a little plant pot heater down here, and it keeps this room really warm. As you can see, it's quite small, but it's really good.
Yeah.
Well, you see, I put it like this. You see, what the problem is, this is why we have all these crashes, is that if you take the analogy of society being an engine, right? So the component parts are the people, different parts do different things, and the thing that keeps them flowing is the oil. Now, if you then start to reduce the amount of oil that's in that system and more goes to different, the engine inevitably is going to fail. Now, can you see that happening anytime soon? Because we've been reporting on, not reporting on, but we've had guests on at least 2 years ago that were telling us that in 2016 it was going to all come crashing down. It was definitely going to come crashing down in 2017 then. And then it just doesn't. It seems that there's an endless amount of oil, but I suppose when you can make oil out of thin air, then I suppose there is an endless amount. But at what point does it, all become plug up?
I've been one of them suspecting it to crash last year and the year before, and they just keep ploughing along. And I think this year it's looking like it may not be the financial crash that's actually going to be needed to give everybody a jolt and say, hey, what's going off here? It might be all the other stuff that's coming out at the same time, particularly to do with the paedophiles in Parliament, in the show, in Hollywood, in all over the place. Paedophiles seem everywhere. And our chief constable, our new chief constable of Nottingham, he has been rumoured to have dabblings in the child porn.
Who are we talking about? Sorry.
His name's Craig. I'll not give his last name because I can't remember it.
Please don't, because we don't want to. We know that the people.
He's the chief constable of Nottingham. The new chief constable has been here for a couple of months, but apparently he's from down Wales originally.
There are rumours.
Well, it's not so much rumours. It's obvious. He was working, deliberately blocking an investigation into a pop star. Not a well-known one as mega, but well-known if you were a follower of that particular band, and that this guy was a paedophile.
Well, all I'd like to say is that, right, if he's protecting a paedophile, that doesn't necessarily make him a paedophile. Now, I share your what's the word, suspicion about him if he's protecting paedophiles, because I would have thought that the only person that would protect a paedophile would be another paedophile. As far as I'm concerned. I wouldn't protect a paedophile no matter what.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. What Paul just said there, or a Freemason, because they are all swear an oath to protect their secrets to the grave, and I believe that it's heavily involved with Freemasonry. All this paedophile stuff is heavily involved with Freemasonry as well. And funnily enough, it just came out today that they've got certain Freemason chapels, if you like, in Parliament, actually in the Parliament building.
Yeah, they've got different lodges, haven't they?
Yeah, actually in Parliament, which is, if that doesn't show you who's running Parliament, I don't know what will.
Well, I watched a Sky News report today, and they had two people on. Not a report, no, it was like, where they get a couple of talking heads and they're talking about the Freemasons in Parliament, and I think they were saying at the BBC as well, weren't they? They were saying in all these high establishments, these male-only Freemasons, and I think that was the angle that they were actually going from, that they were all male-only. But the young woman that they had on, I can't remember her name. She was a young woman. I think she was one of these political analysts or something daft. But they're coming out with these phrases, which I thought, I mean, how naive are you? Have you ever been anywhere? Because she's saying, like, well, I thought that was something from the dim and distant past, the funny handshakes and the gowns and all that. I didn't realise it still happened. And I thought to myself, bollocks. If you don't know that if you've not shagged a Freemason, you're not on that show on Sky News. You know exactly what is fucking going on, and you're acquiescing to it. And this is what really, this is why I can't watch regular news, because I just, I wouldn't have a telly, I wouldn't have a TV, and my wife would be angry with me because she wouldn't be able to watch Also the Year Show.
I'm the same. I can't watch the news. I'll watch it briefly, or if I get called in because it's something of interest, I might have a quick view of it, if that. But generally, I don't watch it because I used to lose my temper with it, because when you know what's going on and you know that they're talking a pack of lies, it just riles you so much. You end up shouting abuse at the TV, because that's the closest thing you can get to shout something out, because you want to be shouting at the guy or girl that's talking a load of rubbish. But so I just don't watch it. I don't watch it at all. No,
it is really, really frustrating when you're watching these people and nobody. You can see that it's completely biased. It's like the march in London with for the NHS. 60,000 people, I think they were there, weren't there? And it wasn't even on the BBC, and it's ridiculous. This is supposed to, we're forced. Most people are forced to pay for that. And they will not report when there are 60,000 people that are so anxious about what's going on with the NHS that they are willing to go on a fucking freezing cold, because I know it was freezing cold because I was sat at Hillsborough watching Wednesday getting fucking bum raped by Birmingham City. So, I know how cold it were, and all those people are out there and they care enough about that, and the BBC can't even be asked to put a little bit of coverage on. You would have thought it would have been front page.
No, you see, you said they couldn't be asked. It's not that they couldn't be asked.
No.
They were deliberately never going to put it on. So the last thing they want is to see men and women coming together for a common cause. And that is that they know that there's a load of crap going on with the NHS, and they're all coming together to say, we're not having this. We know it's those at the very top that are causing all this, as I keep banging on about all the time. The NHS could run perfectly with the funding it presently has if it wasn't all a backhanded job. And as I was talking about this in one of my rants when I was reviewing the papers, I was saying about how this happened. And the reason I know about this is I've been to Egypt, and over there, you can go into a pharmacy and you can buy an inhaler, one of the little pop in your mouth inhale things, for a pound, an English pound or 10 Egyptian pounds. So yeah, one of them for £1. And yet, when I last looked into what the NHS were paying for them, and this was 5 or 6 years ago, it was £28 for the same thing that these are selling over the counter for £1. And then just as I was finished rambling on about that, it came on that Boots were robbing the NHS for this moisturiser, £2 moisturiser, because some sort of loophole. The NHS were paying £1,500 for this £2 moisturiser. It's those at the top, those at the very top, are causing all these problems, not by accident, by design, and they'll be getting a massive backhander from all these deals that go on. They'll be getting a cushy backhander, and they'll be sitting pretty, and they don't give a shit about anything or anyone else.
Well, we know where the aim is, don't we? It's all about privatisation. It's not just the NHS. It's the fire service, police service, prison service. You name it. This is all being hit. I mean, I read a great analogy early last week. It was by Tony Benn, and it was the NHS held a boat race against Japanese crew. After Japan won by a mile, a working party found the winners. Had 18 people rowing and 1 steering, while the NHS had 18 steering and 1 rowing. So the NHS spent £5 million on consultants, forming a restructured crew of 4 assistant steering managers, 3 deputy managers, and a director of steering services. The rower was given an incentive to row harder. They held another race and lost almost by 2 miles this time. So the NHS fired the rower for poor performance, sold the boat, and used the proceeds to pay a bonus to the director of the steering services.
Yeah, that sounds about pretty much how it is.
And then when it's in that state, it is privatised, and then what happens? These companies do not put any of their own money into it until it's turned profit. And do they want a profit? Not necessarily. Do they want people who are ill? Yes, they do. Do they want people who are dead? Of course they do. But they want you to die slowly. That's what they want. There's some interesting stuff coming out about the smoking. Did you catch the article, Mark, about the prisoner who went to the High Court claiming that he contracted cancer through passive smoking whilst he was in prison, and he contracted it after the 2006 smoking ban, and he's lost it. And the reason he's lost it is because when they wrote the legislation for the smoking ban, it didn't include Crown or government properties. So it is illegal to smoke on Crown or government properties. So what they did was they made it illegal. They've stopped all tobacco going into the jails, as in the canteen, and they're giving them vapes. They're now putting articles out in mainstream media. Again, we were talking about this 2-3 years ago, that the vapes will cause cancer. They're now saying vaping causes cancer. They are now vaping openly in pubs, in shops, in clubs, in prisons, everywhere. Now, who's going to be the first one to put a claim in? You know, who's protecting my health now? If you're saying that vaping causes cancer, where's your legislation? Well, this is how they get more legislation passed. This is they've done the step with the smoking, they got rid of it, they banned it, they fined people for smoking, blah, blah, blah. So it's like progressively making money at every stage, and the more progress they make, the more rights they take. And we know that once it's taken, you're not going to get it back.
I don't know where it's going to stop. I really don't. And I know that we're the only ones that can stop it. But even now, there seems to be so many more becoming aware, but it's still not enough.
it's okay being aware. We've got to have people now who will do. And I don't advocate anybody to just go, oh, just stop paying your bills. I mean, if anybody who's ever looked at anything I've done is sitting in a mythical wonderland thinking that I just sit at home and do not pay from my own cash any bills, must be living in cuckoo land. Because in the 10 years where I was fighting to save my house, fighting the credit card company, fighting, and this was all the same bank, fighting an overdraft that I wasn't liable for, and then British Gas, if I can take all those on and then take everything else on and do a 40-hour week, Christ, I must be Superman. Because when you're getting armed police called on you and you're only asking questions, you tend to stop being able to cope with the amount of workload that you think you can cope with. Because this kind of stuff sends you west. So I understand the fear behind this. But there's people who are who, if not already, they are going to be put into positions where these people are going to come to your house and they're going to say, we're going to take your goods if you don't give us this. We're going to fine you this. We're going to take your house because you've not done this. If you don't know that these people can't do that, you've got nothing to fight with. And if you're not willing to do it, and you're just willing to give it all up, then that's entirely up to you. No, I couldn't do that.
I think that's the message. I think when we were talking, weren't we? We were talking earlier on, Mark, and you, Paul, and you saying you'd known each other 10 years, and over those 10 years you've evolved, and you've evolved from so you wouldn't necessarily agree with something you wrote or posted or did. 8 or 9 or even 5 years ago, you might not back that up. You might not agree with that today, but that's the only way that we're ever going to get anywhere with these people is by evolving.
Well, I had a conversation only a couple of hours ago where this lad said to me, he says, I just can't get my head around the fact that if I use it, why am I not paying for it? I went, see what I mean? You've glitched, you've like rebooted straight back to that programming of there is money in this system. There is no money. What do you think you earn? What do you think you get paid? What do you think you use to pay for things? You think this is money. What is your concept of money? Money is, we don't have money. If you think money is wealth, we don't have wealth. We only have a wealth of credit, and that comes from us. That you could create a utopian society where everybody would just get up and go and do a specific task to completion, as long as they had gas, water, and electric free, roof over their head, cars. Everybody could have everything. We create everything. We're just waiting for other people to do it, and then we're told we have to work damned hard to go and get that. Well, why? We don't have to do that. We could do it differently. What people say, we can't do that. Why? We've never done it.
I've got a couple of comments from the chat room I just want to read out. We were talking about earlier on about the revenue raisers. That's all they really do. And let me see if I can find this. He's a twat. This is Heath, but he's called himself Ip Dip Dog Shit. I mean, it's a thing where what we used to say when we were kids, like back in the 70s. He said he got a speeding ticket recently for 100 sheets. 100 sheets fine and 3 points. Or they offered me an AA speed awareness course, which was a 4-hour course for a cheaper price than the fine. So I inquired and they said 91 sheets. So what a pile of wank. It's all about money. And I think everybody agree with it. I've been on one myself not so long ago. I think it was back in December or November or December. But I went on one and I was doing it said that if I'd have been doing 1 mile an hour less, and I was doing 66 in a 70, and but I was in a panel van. So it's 60 then on a dual carriageway. In a panel van. So just beware of that. If you think it's 70 on a dual carriageway and you're in a van, then it's not. It's 60 miles an hour, and they got me, and I coughed up my money.
What did they get you with?
No, sorry.
What did they get you with? Did they follow you? Did they camera you? What?
Well, they cameraed me, but it was on A19 and it was right up in Teesside, so I couldn't really be asked to go up. It was going to take me more time and effort than it were worth. So I just took the course and paid the money and bit the bullet and, you know, had another one shoved up my big fat arse. So it happens to us all, doesn't it, Mark?
That's what they rely on. Is not because it's all going all the way. I'll just pay it, and that's what they rely on. That's why you get a parking ticket. It's 70 quid, but it's only 35 quid if you pay now. Oh well, it's easy just to pay the 35 quid now than fight it, and that's what they rely on. But going to the utilities for a moment, because we were talking about the health service and how they are definitely trying to privatise it, and they'll try and sell it as it'll be a better service, it'll be cheaper. And then you just got to look at the utilities, gas, water, electric. We're going to privatise it because then there'll be competition, so the prices will drop. But since it's been privatised, the prices have gone through the roof, absolutely through the roof. So anyone that believes once they crash and destroy the NHS and health service goes private, anyone believes that that's going to be better for you, cheaper for you, or even on the same value that it is now, just look at the utilities and you'll find exactly the same will happen, because that's their plan all along with anything they privatise. It's always to screw us over as much as they possibly can and just make as much profit and give a worse service once it's privatised, which is what happens.
So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So what you've been up to? I know I see stuff that you post. I follow you on Facebook and I see stuff that you post, and sometimes I click and sometimes I don't. You know, but you do post quite a lot of stuff on there. So what sort of things are on your radar at the moment? What you're concentrating on?
Well, there's so many, and we've got there's something which I'm not going to talk about here. Strange enough, Paul, you may have heard about it. It's a certain mineral. If not, have a word with someone we know. And I don't want to put it out here until I've actually tested it myself. But if it's what it says it is, wow, it's going to be very interesting times. Very interesting. And unfortunately, I can't say any more on that subject. But that one is one that, if I get the evidence, there'll be a rush on it. So it would be a case of get it while you can.
Well, that was very vague. But I'm sure we'll watch this space, won't we? We'll watch this space. And you were saying earlier on that I was interested in that because we talked about this on the last show that you came on. But you said the interesting thing about the new X-Files was that they mentioned the Mandela effect. Now, I've not seen. I'm not really a massive X-Files fan, but I have watched it from time to time, and I do. You know, I have watched the odd thing, and I do know that they, well, for me, they do touch on quite close to certain things. But you said that they had the Mandela effect involved in this first one of the first series.
They didn't just touch on it. They explained a lot of how we've come to know these things. Although they did say it's just people misremembering when, you know, the evidence is out there. It's not a misremembering case of things. There's evidence of things the way they used to be as opposed to the way they are now. And I'm not one. I don't particularly bother either way. I know they used to be like that, and I know that it's changed. That by itself is quite interesting. And they didn't just mention it though. They mentioned it throughout the episode and sort of gave a little bit of an explanation as to what everyone perceives it as. But I found that I never used to be a big X-File fan, but since it started up, I think this is the second season since it started back up. The first season it started back up, there was some very mind-blowing stuff early on in that as well. The one that you want to be watching for that's coming out, I think it just started back in the UK this week, is episode 4. It's season 11, episode 4. That's the one where they talk about the Mandela effect. And I was sort of shocked, but then again, when you know how the powers that were like to work things, they put it out in things like the X-Files. So when you're trying to talk about it, somebody else that's seen it will go, "Oh no, you're just confusing it with an episode of the X-Files. That's all." Because that's one of the things they do. They misdirect us by putting stuff in TV shows, so that when you say something, anyone that doesn't know what's going on will automatically go, "Oh, you just watched a TV show. You thought it's real. That's all." But it was a very the fact that I'm still talking about it, and I watched it like about 5 or 6 days ago, tells you how excited I was.
But don't you think that we know what Hollywood's like? For a start, it's full of paedophiles and sex offenders. And the interesting thing I wanted to point out was that since this thing in Hollywood has blown up, in fact, I don't know any that aren't, but most of the blokes have been Jewish. Okay, because I mean, a lot of people in Hollywood are Jewish, aren't they? But
can we go there, Jason? Can we go there?
No. But what I'm saying is, the media have not been saying that they're a Jewish grooming gang. Whereas they'll say Muslim grooming gang when somebody's stroking the dog outside, when there's somebody who's wrong colour stroking the dog outside. But there's been none of this, have they? Oh, Harvey Weinstein. Do you know what?
See, you don't know. You lost for words.
I'm lost for words because it's not.
That is exactly what it's like. There's a massive attack on language. The attack's been going on for a long time, but right now, I don't know if you've caught any of the Jordan Peterson stuff, have you, Jason?
Jordan Peterson, who's that guy?
Jordan Peterson. He did an interview that's gone viral with Kathy Newman on Channel 4 about the use of certain pronouns with transgenders.
Oh, right, okay.
Have you seen this, man?
I've not seen it, no, but go on.
Right, this guy's a clinical psychologist. And
oh wait, I did see a clip about it. It was about a 2-minute clip. It was very, very interesting.
Oh, it is. I mean, again, what's happened is he's been approached because in Canada they tried to pass a bill. I can't remember the bill, but they tried to pass a bill to make it so that you must, by law, use pronouns that transgender people will feel comfortable with by law. Now, these people don't want to be called he or she. They may want to be called Z.
Yeah, well, fuck off. They can fucking if they don't know what they are, right? That's for me. That's a mental illness. It's a mental illness. And do you know what? With all the shit that this generation in particular has been fucking bombarded with since they were born. My daughter were bombarded from when she was born in 1997. She's been bombarded with all this shit, and I'm talking about from all angles, from education. You can't say this, you can't do that, you can't say this. This is wrong, that's wrong. Oh, and then you're pouring. You've got ill-educated fucking mothers like my ex, who's my daughter's mother, who's pouring fucking sugary shit down the kids' fucking throats, and then wondering why the fucking, and shit and processed food, and then fucking wondering why they've got fucking pubic hair at 9. It's just fucking ridiculous.
Yes, but then to make up for that, they take them as a special treat to McDonald's.
Yeah, but you see, we've reaped what we've sown, haven't we? Because what's happened is, like I said, I've said it fucking billion times, and I'm sick of saying it. The education system from when I was at school in the 80s has fucking deteriorated. It was destroyed then, like you talked about before with privatisation. It was destroyed. The education system was virtually privatised. We've got fucking academies and all this sort of shit where really all they're doing is selling products to kids and trying to get kids into a certain mindset to be consuming, to be working, and to just basically be slaves. I'm sorry, I keep going on. Mark, you're a guest on show. It's about time you.
You're absolutely spot on. They are now trained at school to be compliant slaves who know just enough to do whatever job they do, but not enough to question anything.
Oh, that sounds like the police as well, Mark.
Well, that's interesting there, because I used to be of that ilk, and yet, and you know what I'm like. I'll speak to anyone. In fact, I particularly like speaking to cops because I like asking questions that they end up squirming away from. And I was asking this particular cop I'd bumped into. I was just chatting with him, and I was talking about what happened with a gas and electric warrant, where they'd used it to gain entry, and whose house it was said, yeah, you can fit a prepayment, and they went back outside and says, oh, I don't know. They called the boss up, and the boss says, no, dig it up outside. So the warrant was spent. And I was explaining this to this cop, and they were going, yeah, okay. And then they used it a second time to gain entry a second time, and this time they brought the red key because it had already been used once. They brought the red key to use it again, and the cop said, once you've used it, you can't use it again. So I was like gobsmacked at that. A cop that actually knows that once you've used a warrant, that's it. You cannot use it again. Even if it's the same day, you cannot use it again.
Probably got a desk job now, then.
Well, I have no idea, but it's nice to know that some of them do actually have a clue what's going on, because many, unfortunately, have got no idea what's going on. Absolutely not.
A lot of them, like the rest of us, where they haven't really got time to see what's going on. And you know, when they I'm not defending them, because for me, I've took jobs. I've had jobs, and then I've thought that's not ethical. I'm not fucking doing it, and I've to my detriment, I've got rid of the job. I mean, I were in for an example, and this is not me fucking like, oh, I'm such fucking angel, but I were in DJing in Yates's in Halifax, and this were about 2006. I think it must have been about 2006, and I'd been in there for about 18 months, and I had a really good night going, a Saturday night, and it were like two different nights. We had a young crowd, and then an older crowd came in, and then it were really good, and I was there for about 18 months, and my agent had set me up, and I loved it. I loved going there. But then one week, inevitably, you get in a place like that in Yates's, you get a change of manager, and the manager came to me and he said, after a couple of weeks, he came to me and he said, there seems to be a lot of Polish in here, and brewery pressured me to put Polish beer on, and he says, I don't want them in here. He says, so can you point out all Polish people that are in here, and then I'll get that. I says, fuck off. What the fuck? I said, no, I'm not doing that. That's fucking ethnic cleansing. Oh, Adolf Hitler. Anyway, inevitably, on the Monday morning after, I got a phone call from my agent saying he didn't want you anymore. So I thought, well, he can send some other cunt in. But, you know, I have given up to my own detriment. I've not worked for people. So, but aren't people forced into a corner? These coppers have probably got wives and kids, young kids as well, probably, and they're not very well educated. So, and also, there's probably a lot of pressure on them, you know, from above. When they're at a job, to get to another job, and to get to another job, because there's been so many cutbacks. So I suppose we can't blame them completely, but I do. Me and Paul, I think, we had a conversation before and on air, and I said they are all thick, and I think they are all thick, and I think the ones that are educated wouldn't get through. I think the ones that, you know, that really know.
No, I think the ones that know what's going on just keep it stum. They don't want to say anything to the rest of them because they'll get vilified and attacked. So they just pretend to be as brain dead as the rest of them. Because like I say, that cop I was speaking to, it shocked me when they said exactly what was correct. And they weren't an old cop. They were, I think they said they'd been in there like 3 or 4 years. So it's a new type joining of the police
force. An
force.
indictment to our society that you're shocked that you've got a copper that's actually, you know, done some research and, you know, looked into things and knows the law. That should be the shocking thing, is that you're shocked about it.
Yes, it should be.
The shocking thing is that's not a stipulation to be a police officer.
Yeah.
You don't need to know the law. You need to know how to extract certain information from somebody, and you need to get them to sign something. That's the mass. 99% or 98% of policing these days. If you go back to the peelers, when what the original police is, it's protect life and property. Nothing about collecting money. There's nothing about this. I've said the analogy before about the difference between me as an 8-year-old running around the streets on a Sunday morning playing cops and robbers on my own, me being Clint Eastwood with a 357 Magnum blank firing replica, and a copper takes me into my mum and said, he's not in trouble, I just don't think he should be playing with a blank firing replica in the street. You fast forward that from being 8-year-old in 1980 to now, that 8-year-old kid running around with a 357 Magnum, he's not going to get stopped and say, where do you live? Let's go and see your mum. That's how much policing has changed. And the police don't think that. We had a copper at a gas warrant, and he actually put his hands on the warrants officer and pushed him through the gate onto private property. And when all the shouting had stopped, and I managed to talk to this copper, I presented him with a laminated copy of Section 26 of the Criminal Courts of Justice Act, and he read it. He went, "They've never told us any of this." I went, "Why would they tell you? You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't be acting like this. You have just breached the peace. You have committed a crime. Look at what that legislation says. 7 years custodial, up to. That's what you're facing for doing what you have done." And I said, "You're doing it following orders." I said, "Do you see how mad that is?" And the mad thing about it is, you're mad for bringing that up because they're just trying to do the job. This is how people govern you and try and shout you down. There's people still shouting down about the bills of exchange, saying how stupid it is. That's ridiculous. That's
well, yeah, we know that. Listen, for God's sake, bills of exchange again, Webber.
It's everything, Jason.
I know. Well, it may be everything, but we've got our guest on, and I think what we'll do is we'll take a little bit of a comfort break, have 5 minutes, a couple of records. And then we'll come back in the second hour with me and my co-host, Mark Webster. And we've got Mark Ceylon.
Who Webster? Who Webster?
Paul Webster.
Just before you go, I agree totally with Paul about the bills of exchange. Without the bills of exchange, there is no commerce.
Thank you, sir.
So without, right, I know, we know that, but there's only so many times you can tell a dead horse to get up, isn't there?
Are you kidding? Do you know how many people are asking me what the bills of exchange is right now?
Well, all right then. Well, we'll get into some other stuff in the second hour. Thank you, my guest tonight, Mark Ceylon, and my co-host, the Paul Bills of Exchange Webster. Oh Jesus, I didn't even put a fucking record on. Let me find a record. I did download one. I did get one, and I definitely put it in here. Oh, here we go. Right, okay. So we're going to play a couple of records. I'm going to play a couple of records, and then we'll be back after these two records. There you go. Welcome back to Raconteurs News. That is Heath singing. He listens to Raconteurs News, and Heath is out. God, sorry, I'm out of breath. I've just been running about house. I realised I'd got like a couple of minutes left, and I needed a piss and all sorts of different stuff. So I've been legging it round. So I haven't really been legging it, as you know. I'm not really legging it, but I've been having to go around the house. Anyway, so Heath. He's going to be, he's going. I think he's going to have to make another song. I reckon we need a song. So I used to be. If I were musically talented, I'd do it myself. But I'm not really very musically talented. I did try out for a band one time. I was going to be the drummer, and I went to the audition, and I clacked them together. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I started drumming away, and then I realised that actually I'd not picked up 2 drumsticks. I'd picked up 2 magic wands, and now the guitarist was a can of soup. So that was the end of my music career. But Heath's done loads and loads of great stuff, You find it Heath West. If you find him online on YouTube, he's got different varying accounts, and he's also an award winner as well. So it's always nice to have award winners associated with us. Right. Speaking of which, award winners, award for the most mentions of the Bills of Exchange. Paul Webster is with me, co-hosting. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I don't think I mentioned Bills of Exchange about tonight.
No, of course not. We even, me and you even had a bit of a domestic about it before everything went off. So I don't know whether. I hope people understand that we're okay now, and there was no violence involved.
Not at all. You're in the wrong county for me, mate.
No, I'm in the right county for you, honestly.
Oh.
And we're joined also by Mark Ceylon. God, I don't need to give an introduction, do I? Because I think everybody who's listening to this is aware of your background and what you've been doing over the years. So I just thought, what should we talk about in this second hour? Because we've got about 50 minutes left, and I want you to just tell us what you want to talk about.
Well, if there is anything that really has got me looking deeper into things, it's the evidence that's coming out now that seems to suggest that we are living in a matrix type reality. And many have been talking about it for a long time. There's a video out there on YouTube of a bloke from 1977 where he's at a sci-fi convention, and he talks about how we're living in for the want of a better word, a matrix type reality, a non-real reality. And he even mentions in it where you can tell when something's changed slightly, because there's sort of a glitch in the matrix. And if you think about the matrix where they change something and that black cat walks past the door, stops, shivers, and then does it again, and he goes deja vu. Well, this was being talked about back in 1977. And then as I looked more into that, I brought it right up to date with some of the stuff that's coming out present, and it's now becoming almost undeniable that we are living in a computer-generated world. And this could be a reason for the Mandela effect, strangely enough, because they were saying that, I mean, I'm sure if you've followed anyone that's interested in playing online games, it's now getting to the point where you couldn't tell whether that was a real, you just shot someone off in the distance there, where you really shot them or not, because the games are becoming so reality. And what they're suggesting in the latest research is that we could actually be in a game now and not know it.
Well, for me, I do understand where people are coming from, and I know that we've got people like David Icke who said that we're in a matrix, and there are people that there are scientists that certain people will cling on to something that they say and interpret it in a way that supports what they've said, what they're. For me, I think it's, well, I think it's physical, but I don't think what we're presented with is our surroundings.
Yeah, maybe. It's whichever. I don't know which way to describe it. That's why I was struggling to try and describe it. I'm becoming. It does seem more logical that this isn't real, and there's a good reason for me coming to that conclusion, because if this isn't real, that means we, at the end of this so-called life, we get to go back to whatever is real.
Yeah.
That's the interesting aspect, isn't it? That nobody knows what it is beyond that point. I mean, it's when people talk about the Big Bang Theory. Well, something happened to nothing. What was it before that nothing? There's something. There's got to have been something. But I understand when you talk about a matrix and a computer program, everything is is made up of atoms, and those atoms vibrate at depending on what it is you're touching or feeling, at a denser rate or a lighter rate. And it's us that are interpreting that, and it's only light and sound. That's all that this is. Our brain interprets it. We don't see it outside. People think they touch things outside. They see things outside. It doesn't seem to be. It does seem to be internal.
And it's not been hidden. It's always been out there. As above, so below.
Yeah, it's
as outside, as inside.
It's all there, mate. I've done the right research. Every culture talks about it.
But what if they're all decoys? What if they're all decoys taking us away from what's really going on? Because there does seem to be a lot of different. Look, I've got my own interpretation. You know, when you said before that that faith is having faith in something. What I was going to do, I was going to recount the story I told at last week's last week's show about my auntie. I had a stroke a couple of weeks ago, a mini stroke in my leg, an ischemia in my leg, and I had my auntie who died. I think she died in March 2000. She was only 34 at that time, but and she came to me and we sat and spoke and we had a really long conversation, and it was really, now for me that was reality. It doesn't matter what you interpret it or anybody else interprets it as, or someone might say, you know, you're in a you're ill and you perhaps your brain's this things being released into your brain. You know how people in science will try and fucking blame everything on, you know, by the way, I've got like somebody stood next to me who's just metamorphized. First question they'd ask is, do you smoke? Because that's what it is, isn't it? That's just the way it is. It's just nonsense. So I've completely lost where I was going. But what I was trying to say is that it's not as, for me, it's there is something there, and to know it, you have to know it personally. And the problem I get is when you try and convince somebody else, because I'm not trying to. I just tell the story of that, and it's happened to me twice, and I don't try and convince anybody else. If they want to, if they, but that's my faith. That's what I believe. That's my truth. And so I think it's when those get all messed up into different things. So those get messed up into different religions, you know, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Sikhism, just pick one, and they'll all fight. Well, they won't all fight each other, but some of them will. Go on.
The thing is, you're totally correct in the fact is you can never ever be able to relay that to anybody. I've had instances that I know that, you know, that I've got an experience and I know something. I can't convince anybody else of that. It's a knowing. And I think if you're going through your life coming from as much of a love aspect as you can, and then take with that as cause no harm, no loss, then you are on the right path. You correct all these, you know, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, all these people that were told did these things. We don't know. That's the greatest thing that you've got to concede to yourself.
Yeah.
You don't know everything.
Mark, sorry, I keep moving into Mike, and people keep telling me I'm distort when I go into Mike. Mike, no, Mike, this is Mike, you're Mark.
Dave.
I feel like me and, it's particularly me and Paul have been sort of hogging this. So what do you know? What's the one thing that you know, or are you still on that journey? You know, because I know you've looked at Mandela effect. You're into health issues as well, aren't you? CBD, all that sort of thing, and different things. So what would you say the biggest thing that you know is the one thing that you know inside you that you don't expect anybody else to believe, but you know it?
Everything is curable. Everything beyond a shadow of a doubt is curable.
I agree.
I was at a meeting on Tuesday where a guy had come over from America to do a talk. But before he did his talk, somebody that goes to these meetings quite regularly came out and was asked if they'd explain, what had happened to them. And this guy, he's got to be 70-something-year-old. And he walks to the front, picks up the mic, and tells his story how he was sent to the hospital. He was told by the hospital he was going to die from cancer. There was nothing else they could do. They'd done everything, whether that was chemo or whatever. They'd run everything on him. He said, there's absolutely nothing else you can do. You've got about 2 months to live. Just go and enjoy yourself. So he went home and he started doing some digging. And he came across that evil, horrible, nasty marijuana, cannabis. This was 6 years ago, by the way. 6 years ago, he was diagnosed with this. And he's still here today. And it was cannabis oil that cured him, saved his life, and it's because of that. He'll openly admit it's because of that he's still here today. And that is why it's illegal, because they know of its benefits, and it's not just benefits health-wise. It also, and this is the thing they're more terrified of than anything, it also nudges open those gateways in your mind to realities that we can't perceive as yet. And they're more scared of that than the fact that it cures cancer, AIDS, and almost anything you can think of as well. That's what they're more scared of than any else of it.
Do you think?
I know they are.
Well, yeah, we did say that, didn't we? I did say to you that because I was of the opinion that smoking weed did that. I felt it opened your mind up. I felt that it sort of like it sort of opened your mind up, and whatever was in your mind, whatever was in your head, if they were good intentions, it had come out. You just have an enjoyable experience. But if it was bad intentions, then you'd start feeling paranoid.
And that's where the brainwashing comes in.
There you go.
Because you're going to be paranoid. That's what it does to you. Yes, because you're told if you get caught with it, you're going to go to prison. You're going to get arrested. You're going to get all this. So this is all the negative sides of you trying this stuff. So, of course, you may be paranoid. Me, on the other hand, apart from the fact that I don't smoke, I couldn't give two hoots what they try and pin on me, because they'll find it very difficult to pin anything on me. But I will try. It's my body, and I will try whatever I seem fit to try. Whether that, I mean, I know that if I put a gun to my head and pull the trigger, it'll kill me, so I won't be trying that. But if there's something out there, I will try it. And I do tend to try things rather than just say, here, do that. Give it to somebody else to go and try. I will try things. And it's undeniable what it's capable of. And it doesn't mean it will cure every type of cancer. It depends on when the time scale. If you've just got a very short time, it's less likely to be able to help you than if you get it early on. Because like anything, you start using the goodness earlier on, then it fights the badness earlier on.
I know testimonies from people who have cured stage 4 cancer with it. That's pretty aggressive. I know people who've done that, and it wasn't just with, as you were saying, it's not just all about the THC or the CBD oil. It's about a dietary change. It's about cutting all this stuff out that is the cheap stuff. Why is it 3 for the price of 2? It's because it's cheap crap, and I do it. I bought loads of cheap crap. I've got to, you can't just suddenly make all these changes. Maybe some people can, but I'm one of these. I've got to hit that wall. It's taken me the best part of 10 years to draw a line at drinking. Not because I had a drinking problem, but because I had no problem drinking. It was too easy to come home, get 8 cans via the shop and come home and do them. It was too easy, and I didn't know whether I could not do them. And I had to do it. I haven't drank since October, and I've felt the benefits of it. Well, I've got to get my dietary aspects about it as well. The cannabis and what you were saying about opening the gateways, the problems what you get is the stories you hear about are the people who have become paranoid on it. Those people have got paranoid tendencies. They've got issues, because anybody who's got issues, anything that is crammed right down and buried away and you don't think it's there, you have some weed and it's running about in your mind and shouting and everything. I've seen people have loads of whiteys with issues like that. But you see, they can deal with it if they haven't got those kind of issues. And the benefits of that far outweigh the odd people that it might have those kind of effects with.
Mm. Yeah, it does. I'm just about to give it up, strangely enough.
For the evening?
Hey, what?
For the evening?
No. I'm just about to give it up. I'm just going to take a break because I've just found that it's not doing out to me anymore. So, you know.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I agree.
So I'm just going to take a break. I've just whatever I've got left, I'm going to smoke, and then I don't know if it's. By the way, if there's any law enforcement agencies listening, you fuck off. You know, couldn't give a fuck. Yeah.
Listen,
So
I don't know about Mark. There's only GCHQ and MI5 that are listening on me. I don't know about Mark though.
Oh, there'll be all the American ones, because that way they can listen to us without breaking the law, because they're not supposed to listen to us. So what they do is they get the Americans to listen to us, and then they listen to what the Americans get. That way they aren't breaking the law of spying on their own people.
Maybe they just like the fact that they've got the gas, water and electric are free and they don't bother me.
So, listen, you know, we've seen you loads of times. Me and Andy have been, and Paul. We've been to Nottingham to I think it's called. Do you call it Free Thinkers? I don't know whether it's still on or not. I've not seen anything posted for a while. But I just wondered whereabouts you're going to be going to, so that people can come and just, say hello.
Well, who organises that have changed it now. They've made it a workshop. I probably wouldn't have gone down that route, but it's not to do with me. I just film it and whatnot. But they've decided to go down a workshop type route, and they're not actually advertising it anymore. It's only those that want to go, because they decided that there was lots turning up. I mean, you could fill the room, no problem. But then 70-80% of them would go away, and that would be it. They'd just come for the meeting and go away and not do anything further. So they've decided that they're going to make it a workshop, so only those that actually are going to want to turn up and are actually going to do something will get to know when it is, although it's not hard because it was the third Saturday of every month.
All right. And what about Truth Juice Hull?
About?
Truth Juice Hull. Are you going there at any point?
I've not been asked that yet, but I don't go around pushing talks, because I was at the point where I thought everybody's heard me talk now. Surely they're sick to death of hearing me talk. And it wasn't until Rob B said to me a few years back, I know that you think everyone's heard you, but they haven't, because we're getting new ones in all the time that haven't heard your stuff before and haven't seen you before. And when I've been doing the talks, I ask, who's seen me before or whatever, and it's surprising. Usually it's about half have and half haven't. So I guess I just keep going until the majority have, and that way I won't need to do anymore, because they'll be able to speak to all the rest of the friends there, and or watch on YouTube, because I put all my stuff on YouTube so that everyone can see it without having to travel.
And how's Tom Crawford and his family? Are you still in touch with them? And how are they? And how's his family? And what's the situation with him?
Yeah, well, we spent New Year's Eve and New Year's Day with them. We had a cracking time. There was lots of beer drunk. We've had things going on to do with courts that's been stopping us from doing other things, but that's now behind us. But I will tell you a little bit about that case. In that case, there was a certain troll, and he was claiming all sorts of rubbish. And then this went on for 2 years, and this is just a very cut down version. The most interesting thing of it was that he said, because we asked him why he had taken his case to Chancery, and he actually admitted in front of the judge that he'd been given some bad advice. Well, his Mackenzie friend is the only one that could have given him any bad advice, and without using his name, this bad advisor, what can I call him? He's from down south, shall we say. He's from London way, and he likes hanging around the Royal Courts of Justice, preying on desperate men and women, and then getting paid off them. Well, he's the same one. See, they thought they'd take us and screw us for a load of money, and as it turned out, he admitted in court they'd been given bad advice by, we'll call him Brad Knighty, for the want of another name. Yeah, you know who it is. Yes. And when he stood up in front of the judge and said bad advice, well, me and my friends that were there, well, cracked up pissing ourselves because we knew exactly who it was. But that case has been holding Tom back because, you know, when you've got so many different things going on. Now he's got other things going on. I can't say what they are because they are ongoing. We do believe we are so close to breaking the whole system and ending this evil crook. It doesn't matter whether it's Tom's case, it does it, someone else's, or something happens over in America. It doesn't matter what it is.
We all win.
As long as we bring this evil, corrupt, satanic system down.
We all win. As long as we all win. What do you say, Webber?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's what I find one of the biggest problems, Mark. Where everybody is going in the same direction. The egos have got to stop. There's a few things that are going on at the moment within groups. There's groups forming within groups. Well, this is where all this fuzziness is coming in. Everybody's working to the same goal. Everybody wants to make life better. There's a few things happening. I know there's a thing that's going to be happening in May called the Gathering that is being set around by Real Change Leeds. Jason Nolter will be putting some information out about that, and that's inviting all these groups, the groups of like the Beat the Banks and the Bailiffs, the East Coast guys, and all these other groups, the Sovereign Paralegals, the Pendragons, all these groups are all working on their own projects. The British Constitution Group, all doing great works in their own fields. As Mark does, as I do, as you do, Jason, as Andy does, we all do what we do to the best we can, and we're all working to the same goal. It's about everybody needs to come together with all their own ideas and throw them in a pot. Just throw them all in a pot and let's look at how all this stuff joins together. The stuff that I can't talk about because Jason's put a gagging order on me by email I've just got. The stuff I can't talk about joins a lot of dots, but it only joins dots to draw part of the picture. All the other people that do everything from being the man or woman on their own to a group of 100,000 people, we can make change, and it's only ever been a small amount of people that has ever made any changes that have been anything worthwhile. We're all doing the same stuff. It's time to drop this bullshit fucking ego trip that I know what we're doing. This is the way to do it. That's the way to do it. It isn't. There's certain things that will pave the way, and then every other bit has to come and decorate it, put the lampposts in place and everything to make this road the easiest possible so that our fucking kids and grandkids are not continually raped by these fucking bastards.
Well, you make a good point, and so when you say that these revolutions are by you know, usually started by a very, very small minority of the population. I think Alex Jones, back when I were a nipper and a kid, and I thought that he were actually real, he used to say that there were 5% of Americans that started the American Revolution.
That's correct. Yeah.
So we're only 5%. So we don't need that many. And what we got about. Well, we've got. I think we've got more than 5%, but we ain't got more than 5% of people that are actually willing to do something about it. What do you think, Mark?
The problem is that the difference between then, American Revolution, and now is they've become far more organised, particularly at disinfo and troll agents. And they can make, I mean, how I've managed to survive so long, I don't know. It's probably because I just ignore them and carry on regardless. But they can attack someone so much that it can even get those that are 100% sure that you're right. It can get them to start questioning you. Because this is what happened with Tom. I mean, I know Tom's case inside and out, and I've been, as you know, I've been to court with involving in that case. And so I know it probably closer than anyone else on the planet. And so I know what really went off and what really is the bigger picture. But the trolls did such a good hit job on him. Many that believe what he was saying was true start to change their mind. I think, well, maybe he didn't quite tell the truth. And that's because the trolls are so sophisticated now, they can twist anything round. And that's probably our biggest enemy at the moment, the trolls. And we shouldn't really be calling them trolls. What we should be calling them is enemies of humanity, because that's what they really are.
But you know, when you say that, that sort of backs up the point that I was making earlier on about the education. It's not an education system; it's a training system. Become a slave, wear a uniform, look the same as everybody else. And you know, even the kids these days, they all want the same. I don't know. I'm going back in time, but you know, the old Cheryl Cole haircut. They don't. I used to call her Cheryl Clone because there were millions of them about when I was DJing at that time. So, so individuality is it's not even nurtured. It's not really even accepted. If you're an individual, you're seen as part of away from the system. So they've got that in the place. So when you say they've become more sophisticated, they've also engineered for us to become less sophisticated, to not be able to recognize that with all the shit that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Well, that's one of the weapons they're using at the moment is information. But it's false information. They know that a lot of stuff's coming out, so they're just ramping up with other fake information. I don't want to use the word fake news because it's not all to do with them, but a lot of it is. And they're putting information out there that maybe he's got 40, 50, maybe even 60% truth in it, but then they mix it with some disinformation. And because you've got that bit of truth, you go, oh, it must be true. The rest of it must be true because that bit's true. And it's so hard for those that aren't looking to get dragged into it and be scammed, basically.
You see it with, I don't know if you saw it, I think it was a couple of years back now, there was a panorama program about gas warrants and pay-as-you-go meters. And I was privy to a couple of incidents on that panorama where...
Yeah, we're on one. We're in one. One were in my house.
Yeah, well, I was privy to two of them, and what it did was it showed the locksmith attempting to drill a titanium lock. He never got anywhere near it. Nobody got into this property, but it showed the drill go in, and he started the drill, and then it cut to a pay-as-you-go meter being just finished up, being fitted, and the commentator over the top was saying the gas companies can apply for a warrant to force entry and fit pay-as-you-go meters. They've told the exact truth. They have not told a lie. The gas companies can apply for a forced entry warrant and they can fit pay-as-you-go meters, but they're miles apart. So this is how, as we start to make momentum up and we're pointing things out, mainstream now have to start showing this. This is what is happening now. Now mainstream news are trying to touch base with people who are doing these kind of things. I've been contacted on 4 occasions by a company who's linked with Channel 4 dispatches to do interviews about bills. And I said, I'm fine, I'll do them. but you will not get it on air. And they never come back to me. None of them.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of. I just want to read a few comments from the chat room. Hello to everyone in the chat room. I know we've been sort of not ignoring you a bit, but we've been. What's the word when you're not ignoring somebody, but you're. Anyway.
Engrossed in the conversation.
Well, I was just going to say, sort of sidelined. We've been sidelined away from the chat room, but there's a couple of comments in here. Anon 6745, I don't know who that is. He said, he got released from a courthouse, and as he stepped out in a meat wagon, guy never asked for my surname. So when I just about stepped into a secure area, said, "Who do you think I am?" he shouted down to the woman, "Who's this?" And she said, "Mr. Melvin Wheatcroft." I said, "I am Melvin by my proclamation," which they all had one NH. Now, that probably means more to you two than it does to me. And then 1 hour later, as I'm asking for full disclosure, as never saw any paperwork in 36 hours of kidnapping, released with a nice new grey Honduras-made tracksuit. And again, if you can't take the torture, washing from the toilet, and the tricks like we're concerned for your mental health, that's, well, right, so yeah. If you can't take the torture, washing your toilet, and the tricks like we're concerned about your mental health, that's to try and section you, old days hung, drawn, and quartered. So that's Anon 6745. Thanks for that, Anon. I don't know. Well, that probably means it means more to you than it does me. So. I think that's somebody who's obviously been held, detained in custody, not given anything, and eventually been released after 36 hours, but not been given any paperwork. But this is what we were talking about earlier, weren't it? They play by their own rules. What they do is they just, because there's nobody above them saying, right, you've got to be good and you've got to do this and you've got to do that and play by the book. You see, I watched in the morning when my wife gets up for work. At the moment, I'm sort of laid in bed, and it's like 7:10 in the morning, and the bill comes on. It's an old bill on Drama, this TV show, and I watch it, and you see where the coppers are so scared to do anything, you know, because they think they're going to get in trouble, or they're going to be, I think it's called MIT or something, that had come down on them and everything. But that's just not actually the reality, is it? The reality is that your coverage, if you do something wrong, the coverage comes from the bottom rung up. If that doesn't work, it goes up to that, and it goes up to that, and up to that, and up to that, and up to that. And so if you want to get through to anybody, you have to persevere, and people don't have that sort of time. So it's like a slave system. I've talked too much, Mark. You're the guest.
Well, I'll just mention something that I forget. I was watching some video, and I noticed one down the side there, and I just had a quick look at it, and it was quite interesting. It's for anyone that's had prepayment meters fitted. As you know, they ramp up the amount that you pay, so you actually pay more than you would even if you just paid normally, if you're still paying, and they've managed to get in there. But this was explaining how, so I'm sure that the YouTube's going to go wild when everyone that's got them goes looking for this. This was showing you how to reset your meter to the lowest tariff.
Oh,
yeah. Whether it works or not, I don't know, but it was a video, and I never actually got round to watching it because I got sidetracked with other things. But if it does work, that'll be very interesting for anyone that has prepayment meters had them forced upon them.
That'd probably work with a sledgehammer, wouldn't it, Paul?
Yeah, but that'd be criminal damage, and you don't want to be doing stuff like that.
What, in your own house?
Eh?
In your own house? How can it be criminal damage in your own house?
To your meter? It's not your meter, mate.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know that, but but it'd be nice to put a sledgehammer through one, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. But the funny thing is, what Mark was saying there, with the people who pay for this anyway, you know, literally just out of their own money, they pay for it, they're classed as that commercial agreement. That's why they feel they've got all this jurisdiction to do what they want to do, because they have jurisdiction over commercial. And it's amazing that they're willing to pay for it, despite they know it's domestic, whereas if they actually had a commercial property, they'll be on a cheaper rate if they wanted to pay, because the commercial properties are actually on cheaper rates than the domestic properties. There's been a post in Beat the Banks and the Bailiffs this week where people, well, several posts where people are posting like 6 months worth of electric bills, and they pay monthly on pay-as-you-go, and they're paying £177, £168, £144 in the last 6 months per month. What is going on? Why are they doing this? Are they going to then say, oh, it's all these meters that well, you need this smart meter. We can regulate it then. When you're not in, we can turn your electric off. All controlled, but it's all promoted to help us. Look at all this this Alexa stuff. You know, MI5 used to have to like put a warrant into a court to wiretap your house. Now you go out to Asda or Amazon and buy one of these things.
Yeah,
that's quite scary when you think about it. You know, and what do you think about that, Mark? With linking up with all the smart meters and Alexa and all this kind of stuff.
It makes me laugh that anyone's still going out buying these massive TVs when they absolutely know they've got cameras in them and they're going to be watching them in the living room. So if you got a missus there and you start playing around, you're going to be being watched and probably being recorded. So why would you do it in the first place? And why would you be watching TV at all?
And probably rated on your performance as well, which I think is probably the worst thing.
Well, that'd be okay there, I think.
Yeah, I'd be no good. Sorry, I'd get double points.
2 points.
But yeah, this smart grid, it's nuts, isn't it? I mean, you see these all these adverts where they're going, Alexa, I'm holding my baby, right? This is how stupid adverts are. He's holding his baby, right? And he's holding his newborn baby in his arms. And because he can't be asked to get up and turn lights down a bit, he goes, Alexa, turn lights down. But so he's obviously got all this shit. It's listening to him. It's watching him because he's probably got a smart TV.
I saw someone talking about them that was for these things, and it was on this sort of subject. And the guy was saying, well, it only starts listening when you say Alexa or Google. It only starts. I thought, yeah, and how does it know you said Alexa?
Yeah.
If it wasn't listening before you said Alexa.
Mm.
Exactly. I mean, if you think that you have an Alexa, a smart meter, a smart TV, a smart washer, a smart fridge, if you don't think these things are smart, aren't going to transmit and receive to and from each other whilst you're communicating to the main hub, then you've got to be absolutely bonkers. I want a share of whatever drugs you've got, because that is amazing to me. If you can't put this together. Somebody today was amazed that I said, well, you'll be sat in your living room watching Coronation Street and an advertisement will come on and say, you're running out of milk, dickhead. What? What do you mean? I said, well, your smart fridge will tell that you ran out of milk. No. I said, yeah. I said, you'll be able to sit there and say, Alexa, will you order me some milk? Will I? I said, yeah, do you see how good it is? Yeah, that sounds really great, that. I said, that sounds great. That's how we promote it. I said, but you don't think that can be turned against you. And you don't think that in the legislation that you will read that will protect your rights from Alexa and all this smart data protection stuff, you don't think there's legislation that will allow them in to use it for whatever means they deem necessary under national security? Please, you know,
Well, I was thinking, I was taking it to an extreme, and this might be an extreme, but I tried an extreme. I said something the other week. In fact, I've been saying it for quite a while. That trans age will become a thing. And today, lo and behold, I saw an advert of somebody that had decided that they were age fluid. So they decided they were a different age to what they actually were the birth age were. I don't know how it fucking works. It's completely ridiculous to me. I mean, obviously the woman was going to have to save up for when she was younger. You know what I mean? So that she'd be able to survive in a young age. But I was thinking about it, and you take it to a point where it's like, you've got smart toilets, so you go for a shit, you have a shit, and your toilet says, "Oh, by the way, you've got late stage colon cancer," and they go, and you turn to it and you say, "Well, why the fuck did you not fucking sesame it before?" And he says, "Oh, well, people sometimes are offended by cancer." If you mention cancer, so I didn't want to offend you, but you're all right now. You're going to die. It's just getting to that point where we're so fucking dependent on fucking shit that's destroying us lives. It's getting rid of all the skills. What about your skill? What about a kid's skill to go to a library and look something up because they need to know it for an exam? It's gone. Completely gone. You send a kid to a library these days, they ain't got a fucking clue.
I was reading something earlier where they were saying, up in Redcar, we used to have big steel manufacturing, and we used to manufacture the best steel, on the planet, basically. Now you go to Redcar, and we make lattes and sandwiches.
Yeah.
Because I've known their plan for a long time.
That's how we collapse the economy, isn't it, Mark? We don't manufacture anything. Our farmers, this beautiful European Union that, we should have so stayed in. We pay our farmers to not grow things.
Yeah.
We are absolutely dependent on other people. And people don't get it because they sit there and go, "Oh, well, my garden looks nice and I've just had my new windows fitted. But I think, that bedroom will need decorated." That's the life that everybody's being entrapped in whilst they're chasing for that magical money, what you were talking about, Mark, that doesn't exist.
The worst thing about it is there's men and women and children going hungry, while farmers, not just in this country but in other countries, are chucking it and ploughing the food back into the ground because the cucumber's not straight enough, it's slightly bent. Oh, well, just churn it back up and put it back into the ground then. Wasting good food because it's not the right shape. How ridiculous is that?
Well, it just sums up society, doesn't it, really? Society is ridiculous. I mean, I'd like to say it has gone ridiculous. Maybe more so. Last 20 years, the world's gone bonkers, particularly the last 10. It's absolutely nuts. It's not the world I grew up in, Mark. It's definitely not the world I grew up in.
No, well, I think the reason there's supposedly a drink problem, strangely enough, between those around about our sort of age, is because we've grown up in a world that used to be okay-ish, and now we see it's all gone to pot. And so to get back to that world or out of this world, we get hammered just for a respite of the shit that's going on in this world.
But there's also the point where what they did is they decided, right, what we're going to do is people who go to pubs, they're talking to each other, they're speaking to each other's ideas, and we can't listen in on that. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we'll start smoking ban. That's going to fucking decimate it. And I know, because I was there on the front line, the smoking ban absolutely fucking decimated the bar industry. And so people now, then you couple that with cheap supermarket booze, and then people are realising, well, actually, now I can sit at home, I can sit in my underpants, I can drink twice as much as I could before on the same money. And you know, I'm socialising because I'm on me tablet and you know, on Facebook, and we're having a bit of a laugh, and we're sharing little memes and pictures of us dinner, and it's just.
I can have my kebab delivered. I don't need a taxi home. I get your kebab delivered.
You see, I was thinking other day. Not other day. It was today, actually. I was thinking today. What a fucking huge loss the milkman has been. Just a huge loss to, you know, somebody who could keep an eye on people that they knew that were elderly. So if they knew that if they fucking got, you know, they've got 4 pints and note's been fucking moved for a couple of days, they know that so much wrong. But we haven't even got that anymore. That were like little things that were and milk weren't that expensive when you had it delivered,
Yes,
was it?
Yeah, but the problem was it was being delivered in glass bottles, so it didn't get any contaminants. So they had to do away with that, so they could put it into plastic bowls where the certain contaminants in the plastic can leach into the milk and whatever else. That was part of the plan. Always, everything that happens is by design. They've thought it out 10, 20, 30 years in advance.
I know,
exactly.
Mark, but you know, to get to the people that don't know this, right? It's no good saying to them this has been in the. We know that it's been in the mix for fucking 50, 60 years, probably since end of World War II. That's been the plan. We know that, but to say that, but it's something that you can point out to people and they'll just think about it, you know. And that's one. I'm just thinking about little seeds that you can plant in people's minds. I always like, you know, whenever I do try to say things when I'm in post office or in co-op or whatever and everything, and you know, just little things like I miss milkman. Our next door neighbour up until about 4 or 5 years ago were a woman who were God knows how old, and she was found because a milkman was delivering her milk. She was found dead because a milkman was delivering her milk, and she'd not took it in for like 2 days, and that's how she was found. And that's you know, when people say, "Oh, well, milk's so much cheaper from the supermarket," yeah, but you're losing that, aren't you? You're losing that community. You're losing that people looking out for each other, because I know people really do want to look out for each other. It's just that the media and everybody else, everything else seems to make them suspicious of everybody. So you know, when you, it just bugs me when I give a bloke for an example. I were in Morrison's, and I got all my bags because, you know, since they started charging bags, I've got all these bags for life and whatever. And there's this bloke in front of me, and he's an old geezer, and he's like, he's got his stuff, and then she says, "Do you want a bag?" And he sort of looks at his money and says, "Well, no," you know. So obviously can't afford a bag. So I just got money in my bag. I said, "Here, have this bag." And he said, "What?" And it's just, so it cost me that bag. It cost me £1 or something, or 50p. But giving it to him, he was so grateful for it, and that's what we're losing out on, with all these, everything becoming so impersonal. And I'm sorry, I've been ranting, Mark. We've got as long as you want, so you go on.
Hey, it's good to see someone else ranting, because if you're not ranting, then you're not aware of what's going on. You're living in a fake world. And the thing with the pubs, I knew this 15 years ago. They were planning to shut down the pubs because we gather there, we chat there, other people hear you. So what type of pubs are we left with nowadays? Pubs with music blaring out so loud, you have to put your heads next to each other to hear what you're saying, so that no one else can hear. It's very, very rare that you'll go in a pub. Even Wetherspoons, they never used to have music at all, but they've got it in there now. But it's very rare, unless you go to a village pub or something like that, that you will find a pub where there's no music blaring out. And that's by design, because they don't want you talking and anyone else hearing what you're talking about. It's so designed and so in your face. When you look for it, you think, wow, how could I not see that? And once you start looking, it pulls you in. So you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And for some, it gets scary. It does get scary. And when it gets scary, you'll just stop there. Don't go any deeper. Just research around whatever you've been doing. Don't go any deeper, because it is scary if this was real.
Well, that's a whole can of worms, isn't it, that one? I mean, if this is real, it is, whatever we're experiencing is real, because the consequences of whatever we do appear to come before us. So what do we do? Do we have to go into another spiritual reality or whatever? Listen, I think that's a completely another show. A complete other show, going into spirituality and what are we and where are we? And
if the way I perceive things is correct, that we're not really here, that we are. This is an experience and it feels real. But if it is that, and by the fact the Mandela effect, things have changed. Things have definitely changed, and if we can change things with our minds. Because if this isn't real, although it certainly looks real, it feels real, if it's capable of changing, or we're capable of changing it, why do you think there's so much doom and gloom in the newspapers and in the news? They want to keep us in a doom and gloom mentality. Because think about it, after we won the Olympics back in 2007, do you remember what happened the next day?
Yeah, 7-7.
7-7. Everyone was, we won the... Well, anyway, I was thinking, oh, God, not that again. But anyway, some were over the moon about it, and then, bang, let's bring them back down again. Take them up, bring them down. Well, this is why the weather is so shitty. Look, we're going to have 10 days of sleet and snow, and it's going to be -10 or -14. They know we create what actually happens. So if they can get us to think that this is going to happen, we will create it, we'll manifest it. What we've got to start doing is stop watching their bullshit and start creating a far better environment for everyone.
Wow, yeah.
Change it every day. We change things every day.
I've got to completely give you full kudos for that, because I can't disagree with a word you've said. We've got to change it. We've got to come together to change it. And I don't mean in like you're my best mate, I agree with everything that you say kind of way. I think
that's ridiculous, wouldn't it?
I wanted to mention, and I don't know if anybody's seen it, and please don't think that this is me giving any credence to any of this, but it just shows that when people have got the same mindset and they come together and they put the differences aside, that things can happen. Now, there was I think there was a rally in London, and lots of football firms, these firms that follow footballs, they all met up and did this rally, and it were an EDL rally type thing. Now, that I don't know what went off. I don't know what the idea of it was, but they all came together. So you got Millwall and Chelsea and West Ham, and you got Man United firms coming down, and they were all just doing this rally. I think it was somewhere anyway. It was an EDL rally type thing. Now, if we who are on the light side could do that, just imagine what we could achieve. Because if we could all just come together, if we all just said, look, all you people, everybody, you've been fucked for this, you've been fucked for that. We've all been fucked by the same fucking people. If we could all go down to go down and if those 60,000 people had been on a Friday afternoon and every MP had been in that parliament, do you think if them 60,000 people had gone into that parliament and dragged them out, there would have been any resistance? None whatsoever.
Here's something interesting about that, though. Rather than them go to that expense of travelling down there because it never got into the mainstream because they don't want it on there, if those 60,000 people had each sent a letter of complaint to the relevant party or man in charge, whatever they were claiming, that would have had 10 times more impact than what that did. Because the way that they see things is very few will write a letter. And when someone writes a letter, they will say that's equivalent to, say, 50,000 people writing a letter. So if they got 60,000 letters, they'd go, whoa, they'd absolutely crap themselves. And it would have been cheaper than going to London to do that.
Do you think
much.
they would?
But
But hang on, Mark, hang on. You're talking football firms, you know, potential football hooligans sitting at home writing a letter to their local MP complaining.
No, I'm talking about.
I think the people like that have got every bit of part to play as the likes of anybody in any of these groups. I mean, I work with people who've come into work and gone, oh, for fuck's sake, late for fucking work because those dickhead frackers. I said, what? Those idiots fucking chain themselves up. I'm like, those idiots are going to try and stop your water table being poisoned so that you don't fucking die. And you're complaining about being 20 minutes late. So I can't do that. Could you do that, Mark? I know you've been up on the rooftops.
No, I couldn't go out there and do what they do because they're real hardcore.
They are. And we need people like that, and we need everybody from all these groups who were attacked by the same fucking dickheads who put bullshit out there, who try and come and cause discourse within other groups. You've got pure and fact, plain simple stuff that you can use, and you know it works. The other stuff that we know is correct, that may not work right now, is still there in the background. The fact is, there's got to be a push this year, and I've said it last year that this year was going to be big, and it does seem like there's a lot that is moving forward now.
Well, I think the last time they really started to pay attention and get a little squeaky bum was Tom Crawford's in that January when about 800 people turn up because they know that sort of thing for that sort of thing. If they hadn't stumped it out as quick as it possibly could, it could have spread and that could have been the end of it for them then. And that's why I believe they did what they did.
Well, they threw money. They couldn't have what was going on around in that background. Again, like you were saying, whatever people want to pick up all the time, whatever that was doing, it was highlighting the fraud. And for 800 people to come together, that was a bit shocking. And especially Nottingham, because I know that area looks, because of like all the paedophile stuff that's being covered up there, I know that's a hot spot. I know that is one of the big hubs, especially in the Midlands there. And they're shitting themselves with what's going on. You know, the Melanie Shaw stuff, I know what stuff that is going on in the background with that. The stuff that's going on there, the connections that girl makes, the ones that John Wedger made, the whistleblower, you know, he's been blown off because all these people, politicians, judges, all these people are coming together. It's going to blow the Freemasons, it's going to blow everything up in the air. And people are going to go, fuck me, what the fucking hell has just happened?
But we've been saying that for a long time now, haven't we, Paul?
Yes, we have.
Yeah. So when's it going to happen? I don't expect you to answer that because that's just like the most ridiculous question. I know it's got to happen at some point. I just don't know whether it's going to be. Do you think they're going to let us know, or do you think it's going to be a surprise?
Well, I always look at the time. Remember when Romania revolted and Ceausescu went?
Yeah, 1990.
Nobody saw that coming until Ceausescu was swinging from a lamppost next to his wife. That's how suddenly that happened.
And do you know what? I actually watched something on that, a documentary on that, and I almost went onto social media and put a status up or a tweet or some daft like that saying, I think it's about time we got Ceausescu on these fuckers. You know, but I thought, you know, soon there'll be a knock on my door and, you know, I'll have some bracelets and that.
Well, do you think it's by accident that both Parliament and Buckingham Palace are closing down this year for massive refurbishment? They're doing a runner. They know the shit's coming.
And Congress.
Yeah, they're doing a runner. Well. They know the shit's coming. They're doing a runner.
Well, fellas, it's been absolutely fantastic. I'm going to have to wrap it up. I need to see my wife before she goes to bed because she goes to work before I get up, and then and I've not seen her tonight. very much at all, only for a couple of hours. So I need to go and see her. So, but it's been an absolute pleasure, Mark. And anytime you want to come on, anytime you want to come tell us anything, you just get in touch. Let me or Paul or Andy or anybody know, and we'll have you back on. And a big thank you to Paul as well, Paul, for co-hosting with me tonight. Very big bills of exchange, man. He's got very big bills of exchange, as our Paul.
I do like the size of my bills, I must admit.
Yeah, when he's confronted with armed police. Or security officers in court. Yeah, he's got the biggest bills of exchange that you've ever seen. Right, listen, we'll be back tomorrow night. I'll be talking to Lisa Tanner. Lisa Tanner's coming on, and she's going to be talking to us and telling us about proton. Oh God, I got it up, and then
proton therapy.
Proton therapy. That's the one. Proton therapy. That's going to be set from 7 o'clock. It'll be Lisa Tanner. We'll be talking about proton therapy. Whatever you're doing between now and then, have a good night. I've got a few little other things that I wanted to get to tonight, but we're just at our time. It's been such a fantastic show. Thanks very much, Mark, for joining us, and thank you very much, Paul. Take care, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow night, God willing, and we'll finish off with this one. Ta-ra a bit. Bye.